he was key, wasn't he? Firmino coming on and getting that goal for Liverpool. They had been under pressure for a lot of that second half. What's that line about teams, good teams, winning when they're not playing particularly well? Was that the case tonight, Brian?
I would think so. There was a fair bit of chaos in the match, and seemingly Klopp likes organised chaos, and they got away with it. At times, defensively, they were found wanting, particularly Trent Alexander-Arnold, who Perisic had a field day for a lot of the match out there against him. Dzeko had lots of chances in the game, but you know, he's just not good enough. I mean, before the match we talked about him a bit and said he's having a very good season, scoring lots of goals, but Liverpool signed Diaz for whatever the fee was, 50 million, as a backup to three really smashing front players.
Four, really, if you include.
Yeah, well, I'm leaving Firmino out of it and saying, well, with Jota, Mane and Salah at their best, and yet they're signing where Milan are signing Dzeko on a free and hoping to beat Liverpool in the Champions League. He wasn't good enough tonight, but Liverpool did.
So you say Klopp got away with one tonight?
I think he did a bit. That's what I'm saying. It was a bit. The match was a bit chaotic at times. A lot of tackles, one-to-one challenges, scraps. No great fluency to Liverpool's play. Inter Milan looked the better team for about 20 minutes in the second half. But in fairness to Klopp, he made the substitutions. Four fresh players on the pitch, and that affected the game. And Firmino had a big influence by getting the breakthrough goal. They hadn't had a clear-cut chance in the match until then, Liverpool. Whereas at the other end, Inter Milan had numerous chances, I would have said, but they weren't good enough to take
Interestingly enough, numerous chances, but they didn't have a shot on target in the game. As Brian says, you know, that's what it comes down to in the end, isn't it?
Jerry said it in commentary about the final ball from Inter. It just lacked. So often they got into situations where you think either shoot or get the pass perfect, and they just lacked it in the end. And I think when you play as well as Inter did for certainly that 20 minutes in the second half, the energy they put into it, we don't get a reward, it can suck the life out of you. And then Liverpool obviously sucker punched.
They looked demoralised after those goals went in, didn't they?
And Liverpool controlled it then. They had time on the ball, they had the more experienced players on to keep it and keep moving it, and they just wore Inter down in the end.
Yeah, back in the Champions League knockout for the first time in 10 years. Looks like Inter Milan are heading out, and Liverpool look in really good shape after those goals went in. They did begin to flag a little bit. So we're going to go in to have a look at things that are really worrying from a Liverpool point of view, I think it's fair to say, Richard. In terms of going forward in this competition, which presuming they will do now, how Inter Milan targeted them defensively, particularly that right-hand side.
Yeah, I think to win this competition, you can't have obvious weaknesses. You can have occasions when things don't go your way and you get exploited, but for a team to openly sort of target one of your players and one of your wings is unusual at this level. And Inter, straight from the start, they thought Perisic had the better of whoever it may be coming down that right hand side, mostly Alexander-Arnold, and Çalhanoğlu gets into the box on this occasion and very unlucky not to score.
And they really ramped it up at the start of the second half.
Literally everything in the start of the second half came down Inter's left and Liverpool's right. And Alexander-Arnold, each time he was caught out of position, he was ball watching, he was in when he should have been out, he was out when he should have been in, he was all over the place. And what the problem for Inter was, they just lacked that quality with the final ball. And it's as soon as they get it, they know where it's going. The players already make the runs beforehand because they know the ball will be delivered. Is
he doing anything particularly wrong there? I mean, he's chasing back as best he can.
No, but I mean, the Inter knows, so they're already making the runs. He needs to be switched on a little bit quicker. I think he can probably be a bit more physical in his defending at times as well. But it's so obviously clear what Inter have done that he should have given himself an extra yard. Even on this one, he plants his feet steady, even though he can see the player running outside him, and he's out of the game straight away. And like I say, if Inter's final ball had a little bit more quality, they could have scored it on numerous occasions. It was non-stop barrage.
And he wasn't happy at all, was he?
Van Dijk was really angry with it, but it ends with that substitution, and it wasn't Arnold who came off, but it was more experience coming on to give him a hand down that side.
So just tease that out a bit more then, Brian. As Richard said, it wasn't that he took off Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he put on a bit more experience in front of him, got a bit more, steadied the game a bit more. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but it's also Klopp's approach. I mean, one of the reasons why so many people like watching Liverpool, even if they're not fans of Liverpool, is that there's so much risk taken in the play, in the way they defend. We showed a few bits before the match where they played the high line, tried to get away with offside, and more often than not, it's the two centre-backs are making the decision to step up because the full-backs are in advanced positions. Many of those little clips showed Alexander-Arnold on his way into an attacking position before the midfield player goes to play the ball. When the ball is turned over, he's out of position. But that's under instruction from the manager and the coaches. That's part of the risk of Liverpool, the way they play. They take that chance that he may be caught out of position. The centre-backs and goalkeeper will rescue it. He sprinted back on every occasion. But Inter, again, we suggested this before the game, will have a game plan to try to exploit one of Liverpool's weaknesses, which is they play a high line, the full-backs are always up there, they leave the centre-backs isolated at times, and if you play it early and behind them, you might get in. That's what happened. They got in, but they didn't make best use of when they got there. And in fairness, Konate and Van Dijk did a very good job of cutting out crosses.
I asked you before the break, did you think Klopp got away with it? And what I meant there was before the game, you felt that selecting Harvey Elliott, young kid with a huge future in the game, who Klopp is obviously a massive fan of, but hasn't started the game actually since he came back from that long injury, that showed a bit of disrespect towards Inter. And is that what you meant? Like, could Inter possibly have won that game and we'd be looking at maybe Harvey Elliott, who was playing on that side of the field in front of Trent Alexander-Arnold, being maybe partially responsible
well, he's
for what
in
happened.
a bit. Now, in fairness to him, Salah is the attacking player, and Salah was up. Perisic, if it was five at the back, Perisic should be marking Salah, and Salah should be marking him defensively. But the way they played it, they left Bastoni there to deal with Salah and push Perisic right up. So your right side of midfield player of the three then has to go out and give the full back help. And you're right, it was the young boy Elliott then. So I thought it was a risk before the match, but this manager takes lots of risks, and Liverpool generally overcome those risks that he takes and find a way to win games. And they are an exciting match. He doesn't do things like say, well, we'll pin the full-backs back and we'll stay in position, we'll keep our back four solid. He goes for it away in Milan, and he took a chance of playing the young boy, but they were better when they brought on the experienced
triple substitution
players.
was really interesting, wasn't it? Having said that, Inter did have chances after that. So for the sake of historical record, we better look at this is, after the triple change. And still moments where Inter will look back and think, oh, we should have scored tonight.
Yeah, and again, Brian said earlier about Dzeko, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, he might have had a little bit more pace to get the shot away, but not on this occasion. And Inter were aggressive in their approach to the match, and they forced Liverpool into plenty of errors, and with that, they get their own opportunities out of it. The problem they have when you look at the statistics, there's no shots on target, the goalkeeper's not made a save, and that was ultimately Inter's downfall. But they certainly showed enough for a long period of the game to think they could have stayed in it, but then obviously they faded towards the last 15 minutes.
Yeah. When we look at the goals, we see Firmino scoring. Now, he came on and he had a few unimpressive touches before he got a great header for the goal. Like, is this about Liverpool's squad depth, though, where we're talking about a 35-year-old free transfer up front for Inter, whereas Liverpool are bringing on real quality?
Yeah, and at times Italian media talks about how strong Inter's bench is. If you look what Liverpool did, they were good moves, they were bringing on experienced players. Bastoni starting on the wrong side of him. You look at him, he starts as a defender, centre-back. Richard talk about it better than me, but he starts on the wrong side of Firmino, and he's never going to get ahead of him to win the ball. He should have been starting side to side with him. Instead of that, he's starting with he can see the back of Firmino's number. He needs to start sideways with him, because once the ball is arriving, Firmino's going to get there first, and that's what he does. He glances the header of the goalkeeper.
We might run it again because, as you say, Richard is here to give us a masterclass.
Well, I won't talk about centre-back play, but I know about if Richard's playing for me, I wouldn't have had to tell him. He'd know before his starting position when you're marking. I mean, usually players now with their side on and they're holding the player. You watch it there, Richard.
That's it. As soon as Firmino moves to start with, there's no urgency in Bastoni's reaction. He sort of jogs behind it thinking, well, he's going outside the 6-yard box, there's not much danger in it. And also the goalkeeper, his position, if he stays where he started, he saves it. it's an incredible header from the distance, but he shouldn't be allowed to get the first thing you do when the ball comes into the box, you have one man at the front post, the 6-yard box, who will clear a ball like that. But there's just so much space for Firmino.
If you lose that header and you're the front post guy, you're getting a serious telling off in the dressing room.
But they didn't even have the guy there. There wasn't the front the 6-yard man.
The fella was on the post. He wasn't on the angle of the 6-yard box. He was on the angle of the 6-yard box. He's coming out to meet it. Instead, it was Bastoni was the only one that could have got to it, but he started the wrong side of Firmino, so he was never getting across him.
That's a look at the goal then that you'd imagine pretty much seals this tie. It's a bit of a scruffy one from an Inter point of view as well, Richard.
It is, but it's a dangerous ball in by Alexander-Arnold. Van Dijk is strong. He's won everything all night, and he wins this one in the opposition box. And Salah, who I didn't think was great over the... He was
quiet, wasn't he?
He was quiet over the 90 minutes himself and Mane, but this is why Liverpool have a chance of winning the competition, because they have players like him who score goals even when they're not involved, when they're not in the game. He knows where the goal is and where the ball's going to drop, and he just swings at it and gets the deflection and the winning goal.